I think it's been enough time. I think people need to just hear this plainly. And we covered the trial of Derek Chauvin day in, day out. I covered every single minute of it. And I'm just going to come out here and say something as plain as I can. Derek Chauvin did not murder George Floyd. Derek Chauvin, the police officer, did not murder George Floyd. We as a country need to have a system of criminal justice. We do. But we can't have a system of political justice, of woke justice. It was woke justice that put Derek Chauvin behind bars. It was woke justice that got O.J. Simpson out of prison. All right, Jack, so here we are back. Real America's Voice. I want to welcome in as well the Charlie Kirk audience for hour 3 on Salem Radio Network. So a couple of years ago here on the program, I came out and was one of the first voices in conservative media to say this. And I'm just going to point it out. Derek Chauvin did not murder George Floyd. There were a lot of conservative pundits who said that Derek Chauvin murdered George Floyd. And I get it. The videos, the images are horrific. The videos and images that came out that day were just something that people took, and we knew they were horrific. But at the same time, they were something that people really, I think, looked at and said, oh my gosh, this is horrible. I don't want to see this. And they turned away and they said, get this off my screen. And they didn't want to actually deal with the facts of the matter. Whenever any viral video comes out, you always have to ask this question. What happened 30 seconds prior? What happened 30 minutes prior? What happened before that? And what happened before that was a situation that was very complicated and involved drugs, it involved fentanyl, it involved all that stuff. And when you don't look at that, when you don't consider that, when instead you look at this one image over and over and over, that image takes over. And that's woke justice. And there were a lot of conservative pundits on that day, May 29th, 2020. Conservative pundits, conservative thought leaders who said that Chauvin was murdering Floyd. I have all your tweets saved. And that just wasn't the case. These people didn't wait for more information. They didn't wait for example, the autopsy. And if we can get that autopsy up again. So this is an image I made a couple of years ago highlighting the fact that there was enough fentanyl in George Floyd's system to kill a horse. We also have information that Floyd, at this time, had a heart tumor. That was information that wasn't even included in the trial. So the question is, was this a fair trial? Of course it wasn't. We covered it here on the program extensively. But then the question becomes what to do about this. What to do? Now, many have come out and said George Floyd, because he was not murdered by Chauvin, that Chauvin should receive a federal pardon. I've heard this from a lot of legal types, even spoken to some people that are close to the case, and they are saying that a pardon would not be beneficial for Chauvin. Chauvin doesn't need a pardon. What he needs is a new trial. I'm going to say that again. Chauvin doesn't need a pardon. Chauvin needs a new trial at the state level. And here's why. Because he took the federal plea deal to get into federal prison. Because Chauvin, he's convicted at the federal level and the state level. The federal charges essentially give him an upgrade in terms of the prison system to get him into a federal prison. Last time he was in state prison, he was stabbed 22 times and nearly killed. So a pardon for Derek Chauvin would mean his federal charges get pardoned, but his state charges are still on the books. And that conviction ain't getting pardoned because who's the governor of Minnesota? Oh, right, Tim Walz. That's psychopath. Talk about horses. So with Tim, that's never going to happen. The Attorney General, Keith Ellison at the time. Now, what you're going to need is pressure for a court ordered through the appeal, separate trial, a new trial of Derek Chauvin, because it was ridiculous. It was a miscarriage of justice. It was a woke justice over real justice, true justice, fair justice. And that is what we stand for. That's what everyone in this country deserves. That's what George Floyd would have deserved if George Floyd was in a similar situation. I would have argued that he deserves a fair trial as well, because that's the system we have. Ladies and gentlemen, as always, you have my permission to lay ashore.